like to welcome Thao Pham. Thao, who is originally from Vietnam, has lived in Brisbane for many years. She has two beautiful children, a boy and a girl. Trevor is the youngest, who's 12 years old and is diagnosed with autism. Thao has a strong vision for Trevor and is actively preparing for the NDIS. Thao will now share some of her family's experiences in navigating the disability service system. Please welcome Thao.
Hi everyone, my name is Thao Pham. I'm a mother of two children, and my son Trevor is almost 14, has autism. Just a brief background about myself. I came to Australia in 1988 with my parents and my younger sister from Vietnam. In Vietnam, we learn English at school as a foreign language. However, we mainly learn as reading, vocabulary, punctuation, rather than practical speaking. So when I arrived here, it's very hard to speak and listen to the native people speaking. I spent 1 year learning more English at New Paris School before attending mainstream high school. My son Trevor was born in America in 2002. Our family of four came to Australia to live in 2003 when he was about 6 months old. You will now wonder why I arrived in Australia and Trevor was born in America. Just a quick story of my love line. My husband and I were high school sweethearts back in Vietnam. He left Vietnam as a refugee and arrived in America. Fate has found us half the world around, and we kept in touch by letters. We were married after 5 long years pen-pal relationship. After our wedding here in Australia, I moved to Austin, Texas, in America to live with my husband. As a baby, Trevor was a chubby and healthy baby. He was so easygoing for anyone to handle. He was also a very happy baby, a good eater, and a good sleeper for us. When Trevor saw his GP for an immunization at 18 months, his GP was concerned that Trevor was behind his milestone for his age, like walking and talking. We didn't take that too seriously at the time because we were busy running our business, raising 2 young children, and trying to settle family in Australia. My parent advice was, the boys talk later than girls, so don't worry. We have no family of history of such mental illness. My husband and I thought Trevor was with us at our home-based business every day, so he didn't have any chance to socialize with other kids. So we decided to send Trevor to daycare for a couple of days a week. And there, the carer has picked up his unusual behavior. She followed and documented his days at the daycare and met with me, raising her concern. In September 2005, Trevor was diagnosed with severe autism by a developmental pediatrician within 10 minutes of the visit. Our worlds were turned upside down. Our lives was shattered. My parents didn't believe it. My husband didn't believe it. Part of me, I didn't want to believe it. After weeks of tears, sleepless nights, and blaming myself for what I've done in the past lives, then now karma has come to get my little innocent Trevor. I then accept the reality and start searching for help for our little son. It took my husband 6 months to accept the fact, and for my parents over a year. I start first by calling early intervention centres like Autism Queensland and AEIOU. While Trevor's name were on the waiting list, I also received some support services from DSQ. DSQ offered Trevor a fortnight speech pathologist and also counseling our family. I dropped everything at that time, and I meant everything. Relationships, husband, children, business, working less hours, spend less time with my husband, even my older daughter. Trevor has occupied all my time. He became my priority focus. At this stage, our marriage was at the edge of a rough time. We sat and talked it over. I told my husband, Trevor needs all our loves and support. We need to give Trevor all the chances that we can give him so that he can have a good life later. I ran Autism Queensland and AEIOU every month to check on the progress of the waiting list. In conjunction with the DSQ session, I took Trevor to some additional private speech sessions. There was week that he came out with one new word, and other weeks there was none. We were hoping the more therapy session he gets, the faster his speech will come. I attend every session with Trevor to make sure that he learned the same technique. To make sure that I learn the same technique to teach Trevor at home and educate my family so that they can somewhat communicate with Trevor. From an Asian background, the family pride and dignity is the most important thing that you need to keep up. You will shame yourself and your family if the outside people knows that something bad or something is not quite right within your family. So you have to keep things to yourself and not let anyone know. My family is well known within the Vietnamese communities, so my parents weren't impressed nor happy with Trevor ASD diagnosed. My parents told me to go to the Vietnamese doctors because they can understand how boys are raised within our communities, within our culture. Like boys will talk later than girls. Boys are much slower than girls in regard to development milestones. Autism terminology isn't known in Asia until recently. Therefore, it's very challenging to explain to the people in the community, especially the older generation like my parents. When Trevor was about 4 or 5 years old, he still didn't talk. His communication was relying on pictures. His squealing noises and screaming caused headache for my mom. When Trevor behaviors become much more difficult, my parents realized and believed that something is not right. This time, they listened to my explanation. However, they still denied his condition came from our families. Raising a child with autism sure was a challenge, especially when you came from a non-English speaking background. I was lucky enough to have enough English to help myself with the research and understand the diagnosis. I can search for support from many different services for my son. When I was denied by one provider, I don't give up. I go to the next one on the list. One biggest barrier I faced was the people's opinions in public. It's not just our Asian people, but others as well. I remember very well when Trevor was still not able to speak. We went to McDonald's, as Trevor loves the yellow M, that's what he referred to McDonald's. Trevor pushed in front of the queue, so I have to apologize to the older couple in front of us. As soon as I said the word Trevor has autism, they asked, "Is it contagious?" I was shocked. I was just trying to find a good explanation to describe what autism is about. They left the queue. Then Trevor got up to the front counter and tried to tell me what he wants in his own language, in which only I can understand. The young boy who was at the counter told me to tell Trevor to speak softly, as Trevor to make too much noises. I told him this is the way Trevor communicates when he tried to tell me something that he wants. I just wanted to walk out of there, but I knew that Trevor would have a meltdown if he didn't get his favorite yellow M nuggets. After that, I stopped taking Trevor out to public places for quite some time. We, as a whole family, stopped going out, not even to a local park, so my kids can play without people's judgments. My personal experience of raising a child with autism, I strongly believe in early intervention. It can be a very important key to unlock the ability of a person with disability. Only if the service providers can give more support, such as a more frequent therapy session, this then will reduce the work later in the primary school years and later in life. Having said that, I thought I did enough by sending my son to early interventions, which allowed him the ability to communicate better. I was the happiest mom in the world. So then I resumed my busy working schedule to support a family and to repay the early intervention debt. However, before exiting Year 6, going to high school year, the school did a cognitive test and found him at a very low at all his levels of achievement, including readings and comprehension skills. I was again shocked at the result. The result that made me sleepless for months. I wish I had continued with the speech therapy. My son is now almost 14 years old. His dream is changing constantly as he's growing. His first dream was to work at EB Game and JB Hi-Fi's because he loves playing games. So I asked the school for a meeting to let them know about his dream and for them to draw up the plan to help him achieve it. Just within months, he changed his mind to operate a food store at a market selling fish and chips, hamburgers and hot dogs because working at EB Game is too hard now. As a parent, our hopes for him are that he will get a good education so that he can achieve his dreams and do whatever makes him happy. I understand he may not do well academically, so I try my very best to give him other avenues in life, such as sport, which he also loves. Trevor is a lovable boy who has a great sense of humor. He loves to have fun and is very friendly. He loves to socialize with his peers at his age or older. However, his honesty and trustworthy personality will make him vulnerable to be bullied and mixing with the wrong group. Even though Trevor now can speak, his expressive language and comprehension skills are still quite low. There is no grey area in his world. With NDIS, I hope it can provide support for Trevor to do the things he loves and dreams of doing the things that, for Trevor to do things he loves and dreams of doing, as well as able to live independently, and guess where? The Gold Coast. Yes, Trevor only wants to live on the Gold Coast because he loves the water. He loves the beaches and surfing. He has tried the life surf program, which he loves, but has difficulty to follow the instructions set out in the program. It would be wonderful if he could have some help from the NDIS so that he can join in. Trevor is in the Special Olympics swimming squad and a basketball team. And for relaxation, he likes to go shopping, even just the window shopping at the EB Games and JB Hi-Fi. Trevor will need some support to get to places safely as he gets older. With the NDIS coming soon to Queensland, I hope this means that Trevor will get more support to do the things he loves after graduation school. And for my family, we can take some breaks to spend more time with the rest of the family, time alone as a couple, and especially time for my daughter, who needs has often come second since her brother diagnosis. My husband has always asked me these questions. Will Trevor live with us forever? I said, I don't know. But one thing I know, that he can live with us until he is ready to live independently. My daughter asked the same questions. What will happen to Trevor if you are not around? It was a pretty scary thought for a 10-year-old child at the time. I said, if you can take care of your brother, that's great. If not, I will make sure he's in a good hand with one of our relatives. I do have a lot of dreams of traveling around Australia and the world. But it's very hard to plan my future, as Trevor's future is unknown. I have to get Trevor settled first before thinking of what I want to do. One thing I know that Trevor would definitely love to tag along with us is he is a very outdoor person and an explorer. Our journey was a very rough and winding road. It is still rough, but perhaps a little less winding as I know how to go about getting support that my son needs at the different stages. During the primary school year, I met a few Vietnamese parents who have very little English. They can't communicate with the school fully. They don't know where they can get assistance when needed. They don't go to speech or OT, as they think their children can't be taught or progress any further. That's the way God or the above have given you this child as a punishment. No one has ever told them about the benefit that their child is entitled to, nor did they ever ask because of the language barriers. They feel shameful to ask for help. We as Asian believe that when you give birth to a child, it's your responsibility to raise a child, whether the child is having a disability or not. Recently, I helped a young family which mom has no English at all. She knew something isn't right with her two boys, as the school kept telling her that they were not progressing at school. She started speech session for them and has gone around and around for 2 years, but they still have not had a proper diagnosis. She was referred to me by a friend. I met with her and showed her the right path to get her kid's diagnosis. Being her interpreter for her appointments, I took her to Centrelink to apply for carer benefit. I helped her get the fundings her children were entitled to. Based on my personal experience with Trevor, I told her how important early intervention program can be. One of her kids is now in the AEIOU program, and within just 6 months, she can tell he has progressed, even though slowly, but it's much better than 2 years of private speech therapy and no progress. Because of my work schedule, there are times that I can't be there to help her interpret for her. I told her to tell whoever she's meeting with that she needs an interpreter. A few years back, I also helped a couple families from primary school to get the grant that Centrelink was offering at the time to families who have members with disability. I knew about it because I keep in touch with the circle of Aussie friends since my sons were at AEIOU. I still do until now. We learn from each other children and getting updates from the government's bodies. Unfortunately, families who don't speak English miss out all of this sharing information between families. One Vietnamese family has a teenager that I know. The younger has always had some behavior challenges. I have been a medium between her and her parents. She always listened to me. Her parents don't speak much English and she doesn't understand the way the Vietnamese parent raising her. As a teenager, there is a distance between them now. The mom rang me and asked for help. I suggested a few strategies. I'm not an expert in this field, but my experience with my son was very similar to hers. They are working in order to see if they can solve the issues. I also ring a few service providers in the meantime to seek advices for her, preparing if the suggested strategy don't work. I told the mom at the time she can ring the service provider and ask for interpreter service to make her appointment more efficient. I know that for every family that I can give assistance to, there is many more that missed out on the information because they don't speak English. They don't know where to go for help or understand how all the services work. They don't know that they can ask for an interpreter even. Australia is now so diverse with many different cultures. It's important that services and the NDIS get in touch with the ethnic communities to let them know of the services that are available for all Australian residents. It's also important for them to understand that culture might see disability differently. To finish up, at the moment, I feel my family is really in a good place. Trevor now is bonding really well with his dad. He and his sister is getting along better than before. And as a family, we do a lot more things together, more frequent than before. Thank you for listening to my story.